Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. The number of people who report being abducted by aliens is growing at an alarming rate. According to a recent Roper poll, 1 in every 50 Americans claims a UFO abduction experience. Well, now those individuals are being joined by groups of people who claim they've been abducted together. These mass abductions are challenging skeptics who believe the abduction phenomenon is all a hoax.
In the course of 4 years, as a group, we were abducted about 60 times or so.
In my experience, I believe that mass abductions are occurring far more than people realize.
A whole room full of people were simultaneously taken and simultaneously in the craft put together with one another.
James LaFonte and a group of his close friends claim to be victims of a mass abduction. Their abduction histories all began in childhood.
Ever since I was a child, I used to wake up and I used to see white light and shadowy figures moving around my bed, and I would get scared.
When I was younger, I remember like an alien looking through the windows, being watched, a feeling of being watched all the time.
When I was a little kid, I guess I can call them as like the shadow people, because they used to come out of the shadows, and like the shadows would kind of come alive, and then they'd be these little small guys.
In his mid-20s, LaFonte felt strangely compelled to seek out certain people and befriend them. As these home videos show, the group often went camping in upstate New York.
We would go up each weekend to upstate in Saugerties, and we were just going up for fun, but as it turns out, week by week, we were all being abducted as a group.
And looking back at it now, I realized that I had knew all these people from childhood abductions, and that I was supposed to get everybody together and go up to the trailer to be abducted.
Noted ufologist Bud Hopkins met with LaFonte and used hypnosis to help him recall abduction memories.
It's like on a table. Think how big eyes, and the skin looks molded. I gotta get out of here.
James LaFonte contacted me in 1990 because of certain fragmented memories. He'd been with a group of friends, and they knew something had happened. There was a time lapse. And subsequently, they began to have partial recollections of this experience. And part of those recollections involved having been in a craft, unable to move, being controlled, and being placed, some of them with others, in some kind of sexual situation.
I first met James in '87, and a few friends of us, we all went upstate to the trailer. Just have a nice weekend and enjoy ourselves and have fun.
We had a typical hanging out, everybody getting close together, talking, doing a little music together. And then the next morning, everybody recalled something happened.
Going up weekly almost became an addiction. It was for enjoyment, but it was almost like we were being called back.
More members of the group agreed to participate in regression therapy. Under hypnosis, they recalled being part of a mass abduction.
One time in the trailer, it was around 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, and I remember seeing these bright lights almost in every window, and there's domes on top of the trailer, and everything was glowing, and we just become basically paralyzed. During the abduction, we would walk down this dark, dark road in a trance state.
Mostly everybody was like semi-conscious. I would see us, like all of us, walking down the road in our night garments. And sometimes the aliens would walk us there, and sometimes we would be walking on our own. And we'd be walking to the craft, which was always in the same spot in this pit area.
We would just walk into the ship. We would see the ship in the pit. James would be the last one to go inside the ship.
When the nightmarish memories persisted, LaFonte and others in his group sought help from clinical psychologist Dr. John Bowman.
Generally, when I work with people using their imagination, there's a personalized stamp that people put into their imagery because it's being generated from a part of themselves. These abductees and their reports do not have this kind of personalized stamp, and I think it makes it even more credible.
Once this group is on the ship, they do remember being abducted together. They do see each other physically being examined by their abductors.
James and Kurt saw me on the ship with them and a few other people that were upstate that weekend with us.
They would take us into the room and start doing some of the medical experiments. And sometimes there would be 2 or 3 of us in the same room.
And something was being worked on my genitals. I would see James across the room, and the same thing being done to him. I do know sperm was removed.
I've experienced certain things like that. I was with an alien that wasn't totally at will. First, you know, it looks like a person, you know, and then it becomes an alien while the process is going on.
Rows and rows of naked people, aliens standing, motioning them here and there, directing them through some kind of processing.
When I was on the ship, I remember seeing James and Petra, and then I remember being with the other people from the group.
There's a very great interest on the part of the UFO occupants in human reproduction, sperm, ova, the DNA, but it has also included an interest in human sexuality itself.
I do know that they do need our genes to propagate their own species.
Sometimes we'd be abducted and there would be sexual situations.
It's a recurring theme that we hear from a lot of abductees, especially in mass abduction situations. They're studying us, they're studying our sexuality, our emotions, and they're using us for some design goal as the center of this experiment.
This is across all cultural, socioeconomic levels. This is extraordinarily widespread. It is global in nature, and it is probably the most central hidden mental health issue in the country today.
In working with abductees, James's group, as well as other abductees, my experience is that these people have been traumatized by a very real and present experience in their lives. Their psychological profiles indicate that this was a real traumatic experience. It wasn't made up, it wasn't imagined, and that something actually did occur to traumatize these people.
I lost plenty of jobs, I lost friends, I lost family, I lost a number of things, and it got to the point where I would you know, I was contemplating suicide in a sense because there was no escape.
I believe the abductions are exploitive of mankind and are not beneficial to these individuals. If their abductions were beneficial, they wouldn't be suffering as they are.
It's not something that we come out and tell you because we want to be on television. A lot of people think that, you know, we get more ridicule from it. It's a joke.
There is undoubtedly an extraordinary phenomenon at work here. It is irresponsible to dismiss it. An extraordinary phenomenon such as this demands an extraordinary investigation.
We're a good group. Our friendship is strong. I just hope that we'll understand what's going on at some time, and that we will understand why it's being done to us, and that in the long run that it's all for a good cause.
Joining us now is one of the foremost authorities on the alien abduction phenomenon, Temple University professor David Jacobs. Dr. Jacobs is the author of Secret Life, first-hand accounts of UFO abductions, and has been a UFO researcher for 25 years. Dr. Jacobs, for years and years, you have studied the abduction phenomenon. The idea of multiple abductions, is this something new?
No, multiple abductions have been around since the very beginning. In fact, the very first abduction that came to public attention, the Barney and Betty Hill case, was a multiple abduction. What we see every once in a while is large-scale abductions of 6, 7, 8 people, even more sometimes.
Is it true that people only recall their abduction experience, multiple or otherwise, under hypnosis, and therefore they might be influenced by their therapist?
Most of the accounts are recalled under hypnosis. However, a significant number of them are remembered just straight out without any aid of hypnosis at all. However, we found that handled carefully and with proper knowledge of the phenomenon, hypnosis is an important tool that we use to sort of release the memories that are there.
You are a respected university professor, and for most people, this is just beyond the pale. Why are you involved in this?
Well, you're right, Tim. This is absolutely as far out as one can get in this society. Yet I feel that this is, even though that this is on the edges of credibility, that we must study this, that this is potentially extremely important and potentially impactful on all people, and therefore we can't ignore it.
Does it seem that some individuals are targeted for abduction and others are not? And is there any way to know if you are?
Well, people who have had abduction experiences generally have them from childhood on, all the way through old age, and we don't know how it stops. Most people who are abductees know that there's been a series of unusual experiences that have happened to them in their lifetime. They don't know what's happened to them necessarily, but they know something has been going on that other people don't have. And most of those kinds of people, we feel, have had abduction experiences, or at least many of those people have had abduction experiences.
Have you been abducted?
I have not been abducted. From what I know about the abduction phenomenon, I have no desire to be abducted.
Dr. Jacobs, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim.
And we will be back with more sightings in just a moment.